Right. What happened now? Oh, your friend came. Okay, I'm about to say. I was like, what is going on now? And welcome everybody to another episode of Comic Book Spectrum. We are cliffless tonight here because there's no week off for his special missions that he normally run, once every so often here. But we're here. That
We're
Elaine is here
here.
and I'm here, so we got a couple of things to really talk about here. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying the history making news that's been hitting the airways, which, like I said, I find it interesting of the choice, but yet we're going to find out how that's going to really affect everything for the long run. So hopefully everybody is enjoying that. Outside of that, I don't think there's too much I have on my mind or on my plate as far as geek culture stuff is concerned here. But I know Elaine has been keeping up with some stuff here. You're like, what have you been keeping up with? I don't know.
As a geek and as cultured.
No,
Sorry.
I'm just saying what's like the stuff that you've been watching as of late, stuff to that magnitude. Because, like I said,
Oh,
I haven't been watching many things of geek culture. I have been
Andor.
more researching other stuff here.
Andor. This season of Andor. It is. So
Yep,
do I.
that's what we're talking
You
about,
know,
Carl. Yeah, that's what we're
he
talking
didn't.
about,
He
Carl.
didn't already told the mango Mussolini and his little couch boy. Y'all don't know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay. It's like, because he's a Chicagoan. And, it's like, yeah, I'm going to shoot you straight from the hip, you know. And our governor, who was a billionaire before he got voted in, um, yeah, he's had some words to say as well. And I watched Andor yesterday with my youngest,
Mm-hmm.
and I was thinking,
Suddenly he's all for the last
yeah,
focus.
he seems to be a bit more progressive than I was expecting, because a lot of people who claim to be in the know were saying, oh, they're more than likely going to go with a more conservative pontiff this time. They felt, because there were grumblings, I guess, at the Vatican, that they felt the last guy was a little too. And I know there are Catholics who grumbled that he was a little too progressive. The whole accept, um, meet people where they are as opposed to where you think they should be. Because basically that was a big part of his message. It was like, you can't demand somebody make changes. You just met them. Let them be who they are. Let them see what we have. Let them make decisions for themselves. Banging them in the head with your Bible hasn't worked after how many centuries? So, maybe we need to, instead of making people change their ideology, change our approach, which I
Well,
always thought was a little was
well,
somewhat interesting.
well. Francis was more of a person of service. He did for the people, as opposed to others that have not. And if you looked at the progression, and this is the weird thing, because I've been watching all this broadcasting, talking about, you know, every time that they change popes and everything, a new pope gets elected. Looking from John Paul II to where we're at right now has been a steady progression towards
They've
the
moved.
pope serving the masses.
Yeah.
Meaning not saying that the Pope is going to browbeat people and all this other stuff, but it's more about the Pope is going to be there to speak on the people's behalf. He's going to be there to listen, and he's going to be the focal point of that biggest voice, at least in Catholicism, to be heard. Because
Yeah.
John Paul was revolutionary, and they thought he left the more, if I could say, conservative ways. And then after him, we had Benedict, and Benedict, they was up here. It's like, oh, he knows the word, he knows the doctrine backwards and forwards. but he didn't browbeat. And then we got to Francis, and Francis was like, I'm not going to browbeat. And to my very last breath, I'm going out to the people. I'm going to help the people. The people need their voice heard, because we got too much war. Nobody is paying attention to the lay member who is getting affected by all of these greedy decisions that's going on by people in power.
Well, I
And
also think if you think about the history
yeah,
of the Catholic Church, popes have traditionally they were individuals of power to begin with. You think about the Medici popes.
right.
So they have all for the longest time they've held themselves off as a kind of royalty in their own right, at least within their own mind. And within the church, they were treated as royalty. If you think about the way heads of state and whatnot have treated them, it wasn't they were the head of a church. It was as if they were the head of a nation. Um, and I think as world religion has changed, I'm thinking we've seen more popes paying attention to that as opposed to sitting in the little ivory tower
Mm-hmm.
where people bring you news, but you don't really engage with it. You know, you for the longest time the popes had staffs,
Mm-hmm.
and the staffs um, they engaged with a very small whoever their personal attendance was, whoever the top of certain churches were. And that was pretty much it, unless, of course, you could afford to buy, 5 minutes with the Pope. If you could afford to buy that audience. Um, and then, even then, it was only particular people that they saw when you got those audiences. Um, so it's interesting these progressions of realizing I'm not a king. I am the head of a religious order, but I am myself am not royalty,
Mm-hmm.
and take all the vestments and stuff. I'm a human being. And we've gotten more and more popes leaning towards, and trying to push the Vatican towards that. People forget they still have their own army.
Mm-hmm.
People forget the Vatican still they got their own soldiers and army and stuff. Um, and they pretty much that little Vatican city is its own country. They, the agreement they made with Rome some time ago, the Vatican City is their own country. So they have put, because of the agreement they made with Rome and in Italy, um, they have sort of been elevated to a point where no other religious leader has risen to. They've kind of risen to this height of they're this leader of a religious order who gets to command heads of state to a certain degree. Um, and I kind of am more in keeping with popes who are kind of looking at that power and going, this isn't doing what our mission is.
Mm-hmm.
you know, because in dealing, the popes I knew as a little girl and the Catholic hierarchy, you know, I just, the mansion over there on off Lakeshore Drive, and as I told a friend, I said, it's interesting. We see more and more Catholic schools closing. We see churches running out of money as their memberships go down, but they keep that damn mansion and all of its staff to serve the needs and whim of one man. They keep that stuff up like a castle. It's like while there are churches that are, out there doing it, trying to do the work. And yeah, and I will say I grew up Catholic churches on the west side of the city were a weird thing to see. They were also scary places because the nuns were not nice. The nuns at the church across the street from us were, if you worked in their school, you learned very quickly not to talk to the nuns, because just if you would see them like they always travel in pairs and or more. But if you saw them out in the street and said, "Hey, sister," they would, if they acknowledged you, it looked like they would, if they could, they would just strangle you. And like, what did I do wrong? You know, I'm not Catholic, and so therefore, you know,
Mhm.
I'm not human. But
But
it's been
even being a Chicagoan, it's like I go back to like the early days of Bernadine and seeing how Bernadine ran everything, and then I'm looking at Supich, and I was like, Supich got the right mentality. It made me question all the stuff that Bernadine used to like let slide. I'm like,
Bernardine ran the archdiocese his like here like he was a mob boss.
yes, that's what that
You know,
you
he
you
ran
you,
it like
you
a
you said
mob
it
boss.
correctly. You said it correctly. It was like he was a mob boss. While Supich is like, no, he's running it like a corporation, but he's running it like a smart corporation. He's not overly getting involved with a lot of the nonsense. It's like he knows that where that fine line between being proactive and helping and getting involved in the nonsense.
I don't know. I see they're maintaining Peter Perry, which is the big Catholic church by me. It is a gorgeous cathedral. Um, in fact, it made the year I moved here. It made the city's architecture walk.
Mm-hmm.
It made that listing, which is how I found out about it. It was listed, and I went and checked it out. It's gorgeous. It's a beautiful cathedral. But I remember also being told, "Oh, well, they're going to kick all the nuns out." It's like, what do you mean? Oh, the building the nuns are living in, they're going to tear it down and turn it into a parking lot. I was like, why? Because people can't take the bus. You know, let them give the nuns a place to live so that they can do what they're doing, and people can get off their butts and take a bus. It's like, really, you're so highfalutin, you have to drive to church. You can't get your ass on a bus and go to service. It's like, and I made some people angry because they were like, "Well, what's it?" It's like, well, it tells me a lot about your Christianity that you would rather, kick a bunch of nuns out of their homes, and now they don't have and where are they supposed to go? Then just take the bus to church. I walked to church. As a little girl, I didn't get it. I didn't take the bus to church. My sister and I, rain, shine, blistering heat, freezing cold, we walked that mile to
Okay.
church.
Give me a moment here. Give me a moment here. I'll be right
Ah,
back. But
okay.
keep going, but give me a moment.
Okay. I see Leah made it in. You know, but yeah, it was growing up black was interesting in those times. Um, it what can I say? I'm all tongue tied all of a sudden, which should make Leah happy. Which should make Leah happy. Well, sometimes you gotta be a heathen. Sometimes you gotta be a heathen. I just had found out a cousin dropped her kids off with another cousin who was insisting on teaching them how to pray. It's like, well, if her mama didn't do it, maybe she don't want you teaching them how to pray. But that's just me. Anyway, I've got some books, but I was actually, let me back up, run the way back, Peabody. Thank you. Okay. I was going to mention Andor. This season, I love it. Well, I've always loved it, but this season, they are moving it. You can see how they're moving it so it connects to A New Hope. You can see them making the moves towards A New Hope with this
Mhm.
season of Andor. How they're telling his story and they are connecting it to Rogue One, but they're also connecting it to A New Hope. I'm talking about Andor.
Mhm. Okay.
And I was watching the episode with my youngest yesterday, and um, if any of you who follow politics or a socialist, in the 90s, Lech Walesa um, pushed for Poland to lead the Soviet Union. It's quite the fight. And watching Andor last night about things that happened on this place called Gorham and how they portrayed the people of this planet, it made me think of Lech Walesa and his fight to get Poland out from under the shadow of the Soviet Union. Um, I won't go into details. It didn't go so well for the Gorhams. It went better for Lech and the people of Poland. But watching that, um, it was interesting to see where I could sit and see things I've either lived through or things that are going on now. They're as they're tying these two together, they're bringing, and it's like, okay, this is why they took a little longer. There, you can sit there and watch and go, oh, I can see this and that, I can see that. So you can see how they're pulling from what's going on in the world right now. But it is definitely shaping up, in my opinion, to be a really good season. It will be great. Um, you what is it? In the movies, Jimmy Smits played Leia's father.
Hmm.
Um, and this season, it's not Jimmy Smits. This guy, he was on a cop show. Um, Looks are a little similar, kind of same height and build. Darkest, kind of darkest, smoldering Hispanic guy. Like, but it was, oh, okay, because at first it's like, oh, Jimmy Smits, and it's like, oh no, that's not Jimmy Smits. But it was really it really touched me in a way. And it's the guy that it's the head of Alderaan. He's a senator from Alderaan. I don't know how far they're going to go, because at the time Leia is captured, at the time we see Rogue One, Leia is she's an ambassador. She's not the senator. She's an ambassador from Alderaan, because when they catch her, she tells them, "I'm an ambassador from Alderaan. I'm on a mission." She's on a humanitarian mission, but it'll be interesting. And I don't know if they're gonna have a Leia in the show, because Carrie is gone, and I know it probably won't be a long. It won't be a long. She won't. Whoever, if they pick someone else, it won't be a long show with her or whatever. But it's kind of, it's like, is there a way we can do it without having Leia? Just because I don't know if I can deal with the heartbreak. But if you haven't watched Andor, um, watch it. It is good. It is not the bright, sparkly, spunky rebellion we are used to seeing in Star Wars. These are the people who had to do the dirty jobs, who had to make some really tough, ugly decisions. Um, People who had to get, because in the early days of the rebellion, when the people on top were just kind of finding whoever they could find, and then giving that information through various channels, not direct. Um, they did have some shady. They would have. It would make sense. They had some shadier individuals who weren't. They were bringing in some people who um, Leia wouldn't have wanted to associate with. Even Luke would have been scared. But at the time, to get the things they needed done. This was what, and the fact that money had to be sight, because you always, one of the things this show shows is because you always wonder, where did they get the money for the ships? You know, all the ships and the tech they had, where did they get that money? How did they get that? So, okay, okay,
Wow.
dang. Anyway, you
Oh, they
know,
was talking. Oh, so he was mentioning Carrie Fisher's daughter.
yes. Okay, yeah, I hadn't. That would be great if, because that would, at least she's legacy, and that would kind of keep it in the family. Um, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I've
I'm,
I've
I'm just
noticed some.
trying. I'm just trying to
Da-
get past the bright, sparkly, spunky. I don't feel like what.
Right.
That's like what was like. What Star Wars have you been watching that has been like that type of rebellion?
If
Because
you,
I know my favorite one, Star Wars series was not bright, sparkly, and spunky, and that was Rebels. Rebels was not that way because there was a lot of times that crew should have not survived at
I
all.
I didn't see Rebels, but if, as somebody who came up, I was what, 16
Yeah.
when the first movie came out, and if you compare, Luke was a farm boy. The friend he reconnects to when he goes to the rebel stronghold was a farm boy who originally had joined the academy. He was going to become a pilot for the Empire, and then instead changed his mind and became a rebel. That group of rebels, all the rebels you see in those first 3 movies, if you compare them to the bunch at Andor, it's two different worlds. And it's also because
he,
of the time in which,
he needs to see Rogue One.
yeah, watch
Please go,
Rogue One,
please,
Carl.
yeah, please go and see Rogue One, please.
But if you also think about the time you these movies were made. Okay, she was the stand-in for Leia. All
Uh-huh.
right, and then they just CGI'd her face.
Right.
Um, when they ruined the movie and ruined episode 4. Okay.
and,
Anyway,
and that's I again, it's like, when you talk, she loves talking movies about movies and everything. I don't think that ruined Rogue One or Episode 4,
I don't either. Um, but
but it put everything in perspective, and that's what people didn't like.
when you see the first 3 films, it's more of the rebellion is more of a golly gee willikers type of group. It's, we're on the right, we're doing the right thing. Yay for us, we're the good guys. Um, which means guys like Han and Lando are kind of the standout. Han's a pirate. Lando, yes, he was the head of the floating city, but he got it through somewhat shady dealings and then went legit with because he realized he was going to have to in order to run this mining community and make it safe as well as profitable. It was different. This world that we're seeing, like through Andor and some of these new shows, it's a grittier Star Wars, is what I'm trying to say. You think about Andor, if you think about the Mandalorian, it's a more down to earth. And if you think about what Lucas was aiming for and what they could get away with, because remember, he also had to sell this. Um, it's a different world. It's is what I'm saying. It's a grittier, darker Star Wars, and there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You know, I don't think my generation could have handled, if you'd have tried to make something like Andor when I was the age that the first A New Hope came out. I don't think it would have done well. I don't think it would have. Um, I don't think it would have sold. I don't think people would have gone to see it.
See, I really don't want to address these two here because yes, at the beginning of episode 4, Darth Vader knows that Leia's ship has the
The
plan.
plans are on board her ship.
The
He
ship.
doesn't know that
That is
she has
correct.
them
They
specifically.
know. They know because why? In Rogue One, they signaled that the plans have been stolen, and they let him know that they had, and they were, and they what they couldn't figure out is like, are they going to broadcast, or are they trying to leave, or are they trying to leave the planet? That's the reason why they sent that armada the way that they did.
Yeah, because they didn't want that out. Um, my question has always been, ever since I saw Rogue One, was okay, there was something on those plans that they didn't realize. Girlie's father told her what to look for. That he had put in a fail safe, a way that the Death Star could be destroyed. There was something that he put in those plans that they didn't know. To they
Again,
also,
that's a judgment call on the writing. You have a point. That's what I'm saying. It's like I'm not saying that you're
yeah,
not wrong, but that's a writing call. That's a writing call. That's not something that I could say beyond a shadow of doubt. Rogue One ruined it. It's like no, that's a gray area in writing. He
yeah.
could have done that.
But then would you have had a story?
Well, here's the thing with the whole aha moment in episode 6 made sense when it's like if you don't join me, I will get dear old sister to
I will
join
get
me.
your sister to join. Yeah. But the question is, because before Vader reads his mind, Luke is tired. They've been fighting. And that's when Vader goes, sister. It's, and then it's like, oh, shoots. You know, he knows. He knows. Um, and I think it's because you can't change what's already done. They've got to figure out how to take what's new and connect it with what's already there. And for the time and the mythology that he was working to create, it was the story he chose to tell about how this was going to come about. Especially how what was basically this indestructible dreadnought had this one little flaw in it. And the question, because I just remember friends when I was growing up, part of the questions we used to have was, okay, um, why it was a flaw. Why didn't they, you know, how come somebody didn't see that it was a flaw? And it's like, because the man who created it built it in such a way that it didn't immediately make itself apparent. And they probably didn't consider the fact that, he would have, that there were things that would fall in place. The Sith are not, the Sith can't see everything, just like the Jedi can't see everything. So, yeah, that's that little spot that they didn't see, that nobody considered. And he planned it out, dude planned it out that way. This is something they're not going to be looking for.
Yeah.
Go through this point, go down there. Yeah, they had defenses for the area, and they probably didn't think anybody would actually reach it. And the defenses that were set there probably wasn't set up to contain that little exhaust tube, because when you think about the size of it, wasn't very large. Because if he made it too big, somebody said, "Oh, wait, that's a problem." So yeah, it's you're having to blend the old canon with the new stories. They have to blend. They have to
Well,
make some sort of continual sense. And there are areas where we have tripped. Trips have, tripping up has been made. Things have been kind of, um,
well, that's the thing. There's a thing here, and a part of me really wants to disagree with what Parallax just said here, because it those of us did lead up to the beginnings of episode 4.
yes.
Now, could they stopped once Leia got the plans and they and sent since 3PO and R2 off? Yes, they could have. But they wanted to make it very clear it's like this starts the beginning of episode 4.
And,
That was that connector point. What was said by Vader and the rehashing of everything at the very end, yeah, they could have dealt without it, because technically, by what the movie stated up to that point, he wouldn't have known everything, but he would have been alerted to what transpired and what that ship could have had.
I always think the reason he didn't blow it up is maybe, if for no other reason than the Emperor wanted to know what was on those plans that made his dreadnought vulnerable. If there's a vulnerability built in to what you think of as your ultimately indestructible weapon, you want to know what that vulnerability is. A, so you can figure out if you can fix it, so it's no longer a vulnerability. But you want to know, because it's like there's no guarantee somebody else wouldn't figure it out.
That's not the point that's being made here. The part where Vader shows up on screen, they could have cut that out. Only thing they needed was Leia having the plans and sending C-3PO and R2 off the ship before Vader got there. They just reran the very beginning just for the sake of, okay, we want people to know where this fits at in the whole timeline of all of the major Star Wars movies.
That,
It
and you don't
happened
get
before episode 4.
and you don't see Vader do the throwdown
Right.
at the beginning of episode 4 the way you do at the end of Rogue One. All you see in Rogue One, it's a very quick scene from Vader getting onto the ship to him coming through and grabbing Leia. You see her. There's a little smoke. She's like, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm my only hope." Boom. Puts the drawer. R2 then runs, takes C-3PO with them, and gets them into the little pod. But somebody wanted to show, hey, here's this big old badass Sith. Remember him? He's gonna be badass, and let us see him being badass.
That's the whole point of why not showing the Vader scene at the end. They should have cut it off with C-3PO and R2 left off of the ship. If they cut it off right there, everything would have been maintained 100%, and you would not have that complaint as of right now, because everything would have still been according to canon. The transmission that the Imperials received is that the plans were stolen and it was transmitted. That's it. They didn't know who had it. You are
Yeah.
correct on that. But because Leia's ship was in the vicinity, they would not have automatically blown it up. They would disable it and go on there to try to see if the plans were there, because
Yeah.
they was in the vicinity to actually receive a transmission, and
Yeah,
that
she
was the
was
key
close.
thing.
That's how it is. She got the transmission from what were then known as the
But
Bothan spies.
right, but
And
to her point, it's like, yeah, if they would have cut that part of that of rehashing the beginning, everything would have been fine. Showing Vader was not important, but like I said before, they wanted to be 100% certain that people knew that that's where the beginning of episode 4 would have took place in these sequence of events dealing with Rogue One.
also
Just like
here,
with Just like with the Solo movie, the Solo
Yes.
movie about the Kessel Run and all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden at the very end, which didn't make any sense, was Darth Maul showing up. So that I was asking the question. That's like, well, if Darth Maul shows up here, is this before Episode 1 or after Episode 1?
And he shouldn't have
And
been there after. I'm trying
and
to.
that's a whole nother question within itself, because like, why all of a sudden going to show us Darth Maul at the very end of Solo, and how is he coming into play with Han's origin? That to me didn't make any sense, and that kind of like, parallels your point here. It's like there's certain things that they do at the end of these movies to give you some type of idea timeline wise where these movies fall at.
I'm thinking also because of when he did episode 4,
Mm-hmm.
and that was what we knew as episode 1 back then, for those of us who are old.
Yeah,
Um, it was he had a little easier time in regards to his storytelling decisions,
mm-hmm.
in regards to not having as much of, Fox basically was the distributor
Mm-hmm.
than more than the production. But as the movies get more, especially these two new sets of trilogies, you've got the studio with a heavier hand on it. And as I've pointed out, as we've both pointed out in certain areas, the minute the studios get their hands on the IP, it's not people who even know the genre. It's a bunch of marketing idiots
Exactly.
making decisions that shouldn't be made, who aren't thinking about continuity, but wouldn't it be cool if? And trying to explain to them, wouldn't it be cool if doesn't fit in regards to logical storytelling. You know, they're just looking for the big WTF moment, you know. And some childhood thing of theirs, wouldn't it be cool if Vader, we just had Vader coming there doing all the badass Vader stuff. It wasn't necessary, but some idiot with enough pull pushed for it, and it got through, unfortunately. There,
But
depending on how you do things, depending on who you're working for and who ultimately is signing that check. And nowadays, because I'm finding out, you don't they used to have what was called D girls,
mm-hmm.
which were we now well, for a while got referred to as development executives, because D girls also turned into D boys, and they felt that that title did not. But a D girl's job, it was development. You found a script, you liked the script, you handed it over to a D girl. It was that person's job then to basically oversee the rewrite, to sit down with the writer and go over all of the plot points and make sure that by the time you turned in that final script where the studio signed off and go, we're going to make a movie, you had something that made some sense. They don't do that anymore. It is no longer a paid position. They have people, I guess, who work for the production company who volunteer their times. It used to be D girls were trained, and D girls ended up becoming producers. And you could tell who had been a D person because of the movies they produced and how the stories. It's like, oh yeah, I know that's so and so's, and yep, you can see because they had a certain D people were like, yep, this one is big on things like continuity. This one is big on things like character development. This one is big on both those things, but favors more dialogue as opposed to action. Um, but you don't have that anymore.
yep,
You
you
don't.
she's proving my point here, because I made mention about Darth Maul. It's like, yeah, it was. She's saying it was after episode one. Darth Maul survived episode one. According to the movie,
According to the
according
movie,
to
he got
episode
cut.
one, we
His
did
ass
not
got cut in
know.
half, and he fell down. He fell the frick down the thingy.
According to the movie, we did not know that he survived. It wasn't until Clone Wars, the series, that we found out that he survived here. So when you get to Solo, you have to understand the movie Solo have to fit in between episode one and some other movie later on down the line. So if technically Clone Wars have not existed as of yet, with Solo being in the movie and episode two have not existed. So you really didn't know that Maul had survived until like the very end. So it's like, okay, now I'm confused. Is it before or after episode one? Because technically he didn't survive episode one by the movie, but we know via Clone Wars, the TV series, not the movie, the
Which I didn't
TV
watch all of
series,
them. Which I didn't
the
watch
two
all the way
TV
through.
series, we know that Maul survived, which proves my point. It's like they should have left that whole aha moment with Darth Maul off of it to make it fit more into continuity where there's no questions. The same thing that happened with Rogue One. They should have left, and to your point, they should have cut the film before Darth Vader entered into the ship and everything and said his lines, the same lines in episode 4. Because, like you said, he didn't know. If they would have just stopped it there and everything, episode 4 would have ran right into episode 4, and then episode 4 would have made would have been intact in continuity to what Rogue One was trying to set up here. Not to say that you're wrong or anything like that. It's just I don't get who made that choice to say, hey, let's add it in there for we can make everybody happy, or for people who are morons to understand that this is beginning of episode 4.
And that's, for some reason, people in marketing thinks the movie going audience is idiots.
Yep.
They're all stupid. It's like you're talking to same people who can make their way through a Jane Austen movie. Who have sat through how many seasons of Bridgerton?
Huh?
Because I know women who are serious Star Wars fans who are also serious Bridgerton fans. And you have to pay attention to the dialogue in Bridgerton and know how things are said and what things are, and understand how societal norms and stuff was. So, yeah, but the marketing people, unfortunately, they don't understand and they don't respect actual filmmakers.
So if it was after
So
Revenge
it's
of
after Revenge of the Sith. You know, but when you've got people who
but that's the whole thing. If so, it's like if it happens 12 years before episode 4, but yet it was after Revenge of the Sith, technically Maul would have been dead,
yeah,
and Solo makes no sense now. The end of Solo would makes no sense
there's a
because
great line.
technically Maul did not die, like you said, into the desert with an older Obi-Wan. Well, I wouldn't say old Obi-Wan, but a older Obi-Wan before he left to go to Tatooine.
Yeah,
Before he left to go into hiding in Tatooine, according to Clone Wars, he killed him off.
okay.
So that means that it had to happen, either during the Clone Wars or just after episode 1. That one scene throws everything off. And it's like if you cut that part off where she makes the contact to the mystery Sith individual, and you cut it off right there, you could have left that to a surprise and be like, oh, Darth Maul is still around and this, that, and the other. You could have had like a second Solo movie and it makes sense. But no, you messed up the timeline again. Because it's
Like I
not
said, you've got people who are making decisions on how things get done who have they're not storytellers of any type. all they all is marketers. And it used to be the advertising guys, which is what they were called. They didn't step in until the movie was done. And then it was their job to take what you had and sell it. Now they're trying you're not even getting it done and they're already trying to sell it. And they're coming at people with, well, you can't have this because that won't sell. And it's like, how do you know? You know, and I think that's one of the great things about what we're seeing with Kugler's Sinners is, I'm sure someone in market somewhere he sat in a meeting and someone whose mind is more on marketing when he was telling them what they were going to do said, "Oh, that won't sell,"
Mhm.
and he got up and said, "Okay, thank you, bye," and then went off and quietly did his own thing.
It's like ergo stop with the OG timelines. Star Trek worked because the only thing that they ever did was generation to pass the torch. Wrong. You
I'm
they
gonna let you handle it.
generations passed the torch from original Star Trek to next generation. But you have to
Yeah, they were the bridge.
understand that the director that you hate rebooted OG Star Trek, and the way that they did it is through a time anomaly, reset everything. And now you have to understand that everything that the new Star Trek movies did was in a newer, different universe, a parallel universe.
Yeah,
And the whole messed up thing is that we got OG Spock hiding in this universe. That would be like the thread to get back to the original stuff that we grew up with. And
and
that's what messed up. At least this way, everybody knows watching this newer Star Trek movie that it's not the same stuff that we got from like 1960 to that point.
yeah,
It's a completely different universe. Um, Kirk's dad was considered more of a hero and everything. Pike actually was a captain that was around for a lot longer than what was needed here, and he actually liked Kirk as opposed to hated him. I mean,
yes,
it was a lot of things that they changed Star Trek wise for the newer stuff that they did on the reboot in the three movies and the two other movies that came after it. Speaking of which, I still need to watch Star Trek Beyond. That's the only movie that I still haven't watched as of yet. But yeah, Jar Jar Abrams. Yep, J.J. Abrams. But
yeah.
it,
Whoever made the decision to like I said, this was a mark, and as my teacher used to say, sometimes you can tell somebody wants a vacation where they decide they want to set a movie, because one of the things that happens is people don't just sell scripts to Hollywood. There are people at the studios who want a certain story made. They don't have a script, they just have an idea. And whenever you see something like this new movie with it's the sequel with Blake Lively and what's her name. It's like, okay, somebody wanted to go to Italy on vacation and got up and said, "Hey, if we make a sequel to that, we can set it in, we'll set it in Italy." And then it's like, okay, somebody wanted a free trip to Italy. Somebody wanted to go to Italy, and the studio's down. So it's like, we know the first movie sold. We'll just go make a second. And that happens a lot. You get a lot of people who they want to take a trip somewhere, and the easiest way to do it is get that trip on the studio's dime, and they'll put out what's called an OWA, open writing assignment.
mhm.
And people submit their scripts not because they're going to buy the script, but because, okay, I like what you did, now come here and write the script that I want.
Now she simply said, "Read the second part." Oh, I haven't got to the second part as of yet because I'm going to start with the reboot. The second part they did. What do you think Voyager was? What do you think Deep Space Nine was? What do you think the prequel of Enterprise was? All of that was supposed to be a new direction that Star Trek could go into. Just like with the reboot and everything, that, as you call him, Jar Jar Abrams did, that spawned stuff like Discovery, which doesn't make any sense. I only watched one episode so far, so I haven't gotten that far where everybody was up here hating it. But I was like, I can see why people don't like it. I don't
That's
understand all the hate, but I only watched one episode. But
that's the one with the black chick who's supposed to be the older sibling of Spock. Is Discovery the one with the black chick in it? No, that's the movie.
I believe that's the movie, one
Okay.
of the movies. But Discovery has the same flaws and stuff that Voyager has, because they do so many things off the cuff that they don't have consistency.
Yeah, you've
And
got 20.
that's what I'm hearing here. So it's like, the whole thing with Voyager and the so-called quantum torpedo, where they only supposed to have six, and they're supposed
But
to be
by
able to
the end
get
of the
back home.
series, they actually had something like 48.
More than 48.
You get
Yeah,
my
but
drift.
that's the whole thing. It's like nobody is paying attention to continuity. Same thing could be said with Discovery. But everybody wants to talk about Picard and all these other series. It's like they brought those series the way that they did because they didn't want to lose the franchise, because Discovery would have killed Discovery definitely killed Star Trek as far as going into a new direction.
Yeah.
So they did. They tried. Voyager was okay until they decided to get lazy, and it's like, oh yeah, we don't care about continuity anymore.
Yeah.
The best Star Trek that came out in that whole thing that was not truly tied to the OG stuff was Deep Space Nine. And even though they had the one crossover episode with the Tribbles, it was its own thing. It was a true rival to Babylon 5,
Yeah.
because they were going neck and neck with one another, Babylon 5 and Deep Space Nine.
And I
And
love me
then we
some
got we got
Michael J. Straczynski. So watch what you say, people.
Yeah, and then we got Enterprise, that was supposed to be kind of like the offshoot and spinoff of I believe First Contact, how they actually started up Starfleet and the beginnings of space travel in that aspect with Warp Drive, with Trip and Archer, Captain Archer and Lieutenant Trip. Shoot, I forgot his last name. But yeah, they have done newer stuff that kind of, some of it fell flat on their face because of lack of continuity, and other stuff was great, but it didn't take off in the same aspect like Star Wars did. And I give you points for that. Kathleen Kennedy is, for some reason, is letting the marketing people mess up things that they shouldn't have. And like I said, I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's just there's a certain point where you have to be like, okay, it they messed this part up, but here's the thing: they're doing it because they feel that people, the marketing department feel that people are morons enough that they would get where things are coming from.
Unfortunately.
Yep.
Now you didn't get to go on a different note. You did not get to go to any free comic book day stuff.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Nope. I haven't watched Star Trek Beyond, and Into Darkness had problems, but it made sense. It made a lot more sense in the bigger scheme of things. But the problem is that when you're dealing with an alternate universe, things are not going to change. And then the fact that J.J. Abrams broke rule number one for the original Spock to be there.
Yeah.
It's like never come. It comes back to your point about Vader in a Star Trek One, the reboot of Star Trek One. Do not ever contact me for anything. You're the only one that knows that I'm here. Don't ever contact me for anything. And what does Silent Spot go and do? Uh,
Hi.
hi. It's like we're kind of like in a dire straits. It's like, don't you remember I told you never to contact me and this, that, and the other? But we're dealing with Khan. Khan?
Con!
Khan? Let me sit down and let me tell you everything. I was like, what? That's not going to be Spock's reaction.
No, it's gonna go.
Spock's reaction is like, no, you know the bigger consequences that's going to happen here. He heard the name of Khan and he was like, let me tell you something. It's like, sit down, youngster, let me tell you something. I was like, that's not Spock.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
that's the same thing that you're griping about with Vader. But Into Darkness had its problems. It had its problems, and that's my major problem with that. It was just like that J.J. Abrams aha moment where the two Spocks talk to one another again after the fact that they said, nope, this can't happen. It's like this Spock cannot have the information that I already know.
okay.
Yep.
Well, anyway, I met Jibba,
Yeah,
sorry,
Jibba. Yep, Jibba
Jibba Molly
Anderson.
Anderson. I
Um,
have to give you two mini posters and two copies of the comic because I promised a mini poster and a copy of the comic to Jibba,
uh-huh.
and I thought you would want copies for yourself. You don't
Mhm.
have to take them.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
But
I
I
want to take it
but
because I want to read the Lane Haygood goodness.
well, I have copies for you. So, and I figured you would probably see Jibba before me. I
Yeah.
was also going to look into Pocket Con, and then I realized that they are primarily for a teen audience. I think 12, 13 up.
Right. It's more for school age.
Yeah, which meant I can't take my stuff there since the Adcon comic is 17 plus. It would
Right.
limit. So I am not looking into Pocket Con. I was looking at Pocket Con and then realized, okay, this won't go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
And I think Elgin still is holding on to that. It have to be teen plus.
and I get that, and I get that. And I got no problem with it. It was like, it was one of those things where I had talked about being interested in it. So it was like, you know what? So that people don't go, what did she ever do with that? It's like, no, I won't be going there because this is what I learned, and my stuff does not fit the parameters that they set, which is nothing wrong with PocketCon. Doesn't make anything about my stuff wrong, doesn't make anything about their stuff wrong. It just means what I have isn't compatible. And that's just how it is. Unless I can get unless I can get prints of whale made, as well as prints of old dogs. And I don't want to put old dogs in the print until everybody liked the story, but and I get it. They all kept saying you need to put more of the backstory at the beginning.
She's cracking jokes here.
Hmm. Anyway, I got some stuff at Free Comic Book Day.
Yes. Let's see what your haul is. So let me give you
Um,
the full screen here.
okay, first I'll do it in this one because the last one I'm gonna save. They had this baby, Mad, and this one is from a couple of years ago, so I don't
Mhm.
know if anybody can find this, but I love this. They actually First Aid had it, and Superman got hairy nipples. It's like, um, and it made me giggle. I couldn't resist it, but I also got, and this came out recently, Matt's Mad About Superheroes, which is a compilation book that Matt has put out this year that collects all of their old superhero stories, which is lovely. And I've started it. I have not finished it because there's a lot of pages here. But the opening of this includes a letter from Adam West, which I really loved. Um, and he writes a very nice letter. He talks about his chin. Seems that the Batman chin here is this Superman chin is also a version of the Batman chin, and both chins are Adam West's, except for his. That's not his chin, but see them underwear? He said Julie Newmar gave him a pair like that in 1966.
Wow.
this letter going, oh my goodness. It just, and it is a great, it is great. I love this. What I've read so far is really lovely. I won't, I will read this last paragraph from West. On the pages of this book, the reader will be hopelessly and joyfully caught up in the adventure of other superheroes as well as Batman. So prepare yourselves to see your favorite pop culture icons depicted with the same kind of reverence and respect. After all, it is only what they deserve. Boy Wonderful will agree. Holy belly laugh, Batman. Adam West. I um it's very it's a fun and funny book. Um, I haven't got deep enough into it, but what I wanted to show from this is I love this. This is from the Free Comic Book Day edition, and I love this page. And it's a comic scene we'd like to see. See Superman. See the
Mm.
man. See the thingy about to fall down and kill the man. See Superman push the man out of the way. See the man somewhat upset. And what does he do to Superman? He shoves him. It's
And then
like,
he bounced back up and hit a wall.
it's like, it's just, I love that. It's like, yeah, I could see Superman being in New York trying to save somebody in New York. And some New York person just, you know, losing their stuff.
Hauls off and
Um,
hit him. Hauls off and hits him.
Hauls off and hits, breaks their hand,
Yeah.
but he gave Super more what for. I also found this that came out for Free Comic Book Day. Gogeta,
Yep.
the new
Gojira,
hero.
Gojira, the new heroes. Yep.
Um, the book it is little short bits of the one is the basic Gojira. You have the one that's set in Chicago. The new one
Right.
is set in New York. So they have a little part of that. They also have a little peek at Godzilla Dead Zone and Starship Godzilla.
Godzilla's face. Wow.
I'm going to get to it, but as you can see, nice artwork. The regular Godzilla is written by Tom Seeley. The art is by Nicola Zizmezia. Colors by Marissa Louise. Letters by Brian Kulick. Um, this introduces us to, well, first thing we see is Godzilla being Godzilla, because kaiju gotta kick butt. It's just what kaiju do. But because of this, and this is in an alternate world where this is following the dropping. In fact, see if I can read this. It says in 1954, the world changed. An unknown weapon test awakened a slumbering beast, charged it with weird energies. It rose out of the ocean off the coast of Japan, chock full of resentment and hate, and kept walking until it stomped Tokyo into the damn ground. I guess after they were done with Tokyo, they decided, let's go to New York for pizza. So he goes to New York, but they have assembled protectors for New York. New York has become a walled city, and they have protectors in New York. The G Squad. And in case, for those of you who recognize him, there's Jet Jaguar. Yay!
Wait.
But,
Walled City. So they took aspects of Escape from New York.
well, it's not criminals in the city. To protect the citizens. It's just that Godzilla decided, oh, you got walls? Those walls are cute. Japan had walls. You know what I did to walls? Wah. So much for the walls. But they've put together a G squad, which is okay, except they missed someone. This youngster here, he's you see this boy knocking kids down?
Uh-huh.
See this youngster here?
Uh-huh.
He don't play that. See him knock that boy down, saying I'll teach you to beat up children? Unfortunately, while he's trying to keep this bigger guy from knocking all the little kids down so that they come out, because Godzilla, one of the places he attacks is a school which is full of orphans whose parents died the last time Godzilla attacked. So, um,
So he's trying. God, Gojira is doing Final Destination type stuff.
yes. So, this is what Godzilla thought of the school. Except something happened. Remember the dark haired boy? That's him. After Godzilla went, wah, dark haired boy. Don't do that. Stop. Dark haired boy got up and said, "You don't scare me." Which, gave Godzilla a bit of a pause. And as well as all the adults are kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. Did he just face off against Godzilla? Which he did. And he is what they call a G mutant, which meant something in God. It didn't kill him when he attacked. Something in the energy Godzilla gave off. He must have had mutant genes, because now he ready to go stomp some Godzilla butt.
So, in other words, Godzilla's energy activated something in him, which in turn made him super just like him.
Yes. Godzilla Dead Zone is, hold on, yeah. Godzilla escaped the Dead Zone. This is, what is it? Where is this set again? Oh shoot, I forgot where this is set. But it's an area of the world. Oh, it's the Pacific Northwest, which has become, they've had so many kaiju attacks that it has become an area where the only people there are those who can't afford to move, those who do some very shady things, and those who, unlike the boy, can appear human, become mutated. And this one fella is a mutant. And how does he survive? He beats the crap out of kaijus. Except this particular kaiju, he kind of liked and decided they would play horsey. Get up, get up, get up. Oh, I did not write this book. Okay, I just grabbed it on Free Comic Book Day. And then there's Starship Godzilla.
No, let me interrupt you for a quick second. I'm going to interrupt you for a quick second because Beatty wants to show you this here.
Okay.
About to share it in a second here. This is what she finds interesting. Yes, this is what she found interesting here.
Okay.
That.
Don't leave luggage unattended. Okay. Right. I gotta remember that. Which airport? This is a New York airport. Is this Newark?
I think I don't know. I don't know, but that's what she wanted to show you, and then
cocaine is a hell of a drug.
But that's what she wanted to show you here. So there you go.
Okay. Starship Godzilla. Garzilla is written by Chris Gooch. The art is by Oliver Ono. Letters by Brian Kolek. Brian Kolek does a lot of letters. He's on all three of these books. Now, there are two characters here: girl with the muscles, dude with the brains. Turns out they're here to steal something. Anybody want to hazard a guess what they're stealing?
Godzilla.
No. Kaiju eggs. Seeing somebody with some money wants some kaiju eggs. Not so that they can birth the kaijus on Earth, so that they can birth them somewhere out in space. Don't ask me why. So these two, they get the kaiju eggs. They gotta fight through a whole lot of people. Okay? Because now they got these kaiju eggs for some folks that didn't want to give up their kaiju eggs. But guess who comes to the rescue?
Gojira.
Mecha Gojira.
Oh, what? It's Mecha?
They got a Mecha Gojira that they're using as a spaceship.
Wow.
They're going to be flying out into space, having adventures.
Why would they use Mecha to go into space? Wow.
I don't care. It's insanity. You know me. I'm down with the sickness.
And it's the Orlando International Airport that has it.
Okay. And my placekeepers, I have to do this because my placekeepers are the lovely Vampirella cards that were gifted to me by Jody McPhee. Because I couldn't find my little sticky note thing. I have this like cardboard thingy that has a whole bunch of sticky notes on it that I could use for that, and I could not find it. And it was like, holy crap, I got to do something. And I went, oh, I got Vampirella cards.
Yep.
So my Vampirella cards became placeholders. And what I'm going to do is this lovely little thingy you put the Vampirella cards in.
Yep. That's going to hold the book.
I'm putting the Gojira comics in there. So, next time I get some money, I will be looking for these titles because they look like they'll be fun.
I'm still waiting for somebody to write a kaiju book that makes a little bit more sense to bring them all to life here, like Gojira and the Earth Guardians.
Okay.
Because again, I still want to see the fight of the century, and that is Gojira versus Gamera. Okay. And people who don't know who Gamera is, it's kind of like a Godzilla-sized turtle that cannot be destroyed as long as the love of the little children is for him.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, Gojira and him fight. It's like, okay, it will be the fight that never ends as long as the kids still believe in Gamera. Gamera doesn't quit.
This is the fight that never ends.
Yeah.
And at the back of my Spy versus Spy free comic book day, my Mad free comic book day edition, it's the Spy. That's what I'm trying to get my hands on.
I thought you got it. I thought you bought it.
No, you thought I had it because I was talking about, I got Mad at they had one of the they had a Spy versus Spy, but it was the old digest size. But because you could see it in the window. The person who on the first floor, they had a table right in front of it. So in order to be able to get that book, we would have had to shove him out of the way. And the kids, and you know me, I was like, okay.
No,
And the
in the
kids
back
are
of
all like, no, you can't do that. That will, it'll upset James. And I didn't bring banana bread or anything. And I even had a blueberry muffin I forgot to bring him. So there was no kind of making it up to him. So I couldn't just snatch this dude up. And it wasn't like I was going to take him for the whole thing. I just wanted to get my book. But since
right.
I couldn't get that,
Yeah.
Charles found this one
Okay.
and I bought it instead.
No.
But it's on my list of things to go get because it wasn't the Spice versus Vibes. Captain Klutz. They had the Captain Klutz, and I wanted Captain Klutz, but the kids were like, well, you can't just go grab that person and shove his table out the way just to get. It's like, why can't I? Why
See,
can't I?
I kind of wish I was there because the first thing that I pictured with when you said that happened, you want to know what the first thing that I pictured?
What me?
Out of nowhere in the atmosphere, you hear dun, 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 and here comes Ludacris out of nowhere talking about move, get out the
Out the
way,
way! Get out the way!
get out the way.
I had that feeling. I wanted to, but
That's all that I pictured. It's like, oh, he's his table is behind here. And it's like normally it's like, okay, if you just ask Knightley, they will move and before you could get the thing. And it's like if they didn't move, they were just like the
well, because for if you know how his store is set up,
yeah,
that first bump out window is where they have the cash register. The second bump out window is where they have those
not
the
the
Spider-Man,
Superman ride
and they
and the
got the
spinner racks and
individual
everything.
stands with the books, and it
Right.
was in one of those racks. And when I came in, because I was like, oh, Captain Clutch, Captain Clutch, and I came in, and it was like there were like three or four other racks they had shoved behind it. So I would have had to pull the table out, grab this dude, throw him at the artist who was at the table across from him, and then pull the racks to get to the rack that was at the window that had the copy of Captain Clutz. I figured, okay, by the time I got through all that, James might have called the cops.
Yeah.
And the cops that handle that part of Hyde Park are University of Chicago cops. Them boys don't play. A lot of them are black. And they gonna look at me and go, are you off your meds? And then I gotta go, no, Mr. Policeman, I don't take no meds. And then, it gets ugly. And I didn't have no stabby things with me.
Yeah, you
And
don't have that, and then they going to go get into the mindset of little rabbit foo foo. I don't want to see you scooping up the field by some bottom.
on that. So it's like, okay, I can't bunny foo foo everybody. And I didn't want to ruin it for James.
Yeah,
And at that time I didn't know Jibba was up there.
right.
So, but it was like, okay, be nice. Don't be evil. And then I went up and I messed with Jibba. So and I got a poster. And then he gave me this itty bitty little sticker. I saw because he had full size stickers,
Uh-huh.
and then he had a little bitty sticker, and it was like, oh, that's how much for the little bitty sticker? He goes, oh, you can have that one for free because it was a mistake. It's like, okay. So I got the little sticker sitting on my dresser. It isn't stuck to anything.
She said, "I like giblets."
He doesn't come out of chicken. Jibba is just his name.
Yeah, Jibba Jiba Mole Anderson.
Ghiba.
Yeah, J.
Is it
It's a J.
Jibba? Is
Yeah,
it J? Okay, Jibba Molly
Jiba.
Anderson.
Jibba.
Yeah, Jibba Molly Anderson. He just got some job. He a comic book organization has hired him. He's gonna be producing work, I guess, for them, as well as running a comic. Some company he's going to be running. Some publishing company he's going to be running their comic book division.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna, he's really happy because he's gonna shepherd in new comic talent, and it's like, you ain't shepherd me, but I
No,
didn't.
no, but again, it's like it's a combination of things here because there's a
What?
yeah, yeah, except it's one B, not two.
It's one B, not two, and
Yeah.
he's very sweet. I did say, I was sorry that I missed him at
Mhm.
C2E2. He was busy, got caught up. It's like, yeah, I was hoping I would see you at C2E2. We missed you. It would have been nice if you'd come over. So now I didn't get a chance, and I said I'll apologize to Joe for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I mean, we go back some time. We go back some ways here, and then after I think after the death of Tortel only, he took over some of his writings, and he's publishing that up under. I think it was like what is it called? Uh, four bars and something. It's kind of like an anthology book.
Yeah,
So
and
he
we
so it
talked a little about Afua because until she started posting, I didn't know about the cancer. I'm sorry.
yeah, that was kind of like the thing. It's like, she didn't want that to really get out more so than anything here. But I get it. I understood. That's one of the reasons why I never talked about that to you, even at C2E2.
I wish I had known. I just wish I had known. But I didn't feel bad when I mentioned it to him because she had posted about it on Facebook.
Right.
So it was like,
See,
oh, okay, you posted publicly, so I don't feel so bad. But I wish I'd have known. I would have, I would have come earlier. I would have, but then I wouldn't have put up as much time at our booth because I'd have been running back and forth trying to trying to take care of her. And it's like, does she really need a mommy? No. She had her husband there. She wouldn't have needed me to
yeah, and that was the first
mommy
time I
her.
ever met her husband, because she always mentioned him, always mentioned him, always mentioned him. I finally met him, and I was like, oh, cool. He finally shows up to one of these things here, and it's like, he's a decent guy. He's a decent guy.
He seemed like it. Like I said, when I went there, she was talking to two guys, and I guess, and I was like, well, geez, he's sitting behind her table. Maybe that's. And I first thought was like, okay, maybe that's her agent.
No,
So I
that
didn't
was
know it was
hubby.
the hubby.
That was the hubby.
You know, because I just said something like, you treat a writer, I take her from you. But I didn't know, so I couldn't.
No, no, but it's like it was kind of like the whole thing, because like when I first started publishing, it was people like her and Jibba and Ashley Woods, and people who were making a name for themselves, that encouraged me to, like, you got your first book out there, let's see what you do with it.
Oh, see, for
See, and
me, it
then
was
when I came out with Amazonia 2, Amazonia 3, and did AWF, they're just like, you're one of us now. They're the ones that really like, yeah, you're one of us, even though I wasn't, quote unquote, doing the popular thing, and I wasn't political enough and doing all this other nonsense that, I was like, I could care less about. I just want to do good stories.
well, mine was a little different because I met you, and then I met DC Chen.
Hmm.
And then I got to know Christina Brunson and Christina Griggs and those guys. And so it was, and then Miguel and Susie Diaz and Miguel Guerrera
Uh-huh.
gave me the first job because they put out Earth Dreams 1 and 2. And they approached me and said, hey, we've got this thing we're doing. You want to do a short comic story for it? And it's like, okay. And so I did Whale and turned it in. I was like really shocked when they came up and said, hey, we're going to do a second edition. You want to do another story? And I was like, really? So, that's when I did Old Dogs. And in and around that, I was also, I was bugging poor DC Chen. Was all up, she's asking DC Chen questions and Christina, both Griggs and Brunson, especially Brunson because I had read some of her Undead Fred
Undead
and
Norm.
Undead Norm, sorry. And I don't know why I want to call him Fred, but I fell in love with Undead Norm, the Undead Norm story. So I still occasionally go, you haven't done any new Undead Norm.
and
Where's my
and
undid norm? You owe me more undid norm. Give me my norm.
and again, whenever she gets back to it, and if she is listening to us, I gave you the rights to Kitty Kill 'Em All as a spin-off series to
Kitty.
Kitty Kill 'Em All.
Kitty, kill 'em all, the queen
And
of
if
the
I,
zombie frontier. Hey,
yeah,
I wrote that part. I wrote
that part you wrote.
I wrote
But for
that.
those who don't know, is that Christine Bronson's Undead Nora introduced this one cat that was in the middle of this
Of the
zombie
zombie
apocalypse.
apocalypse. But it wasn't just a cat. The old lady who had the cat got turned into a zombie. But and so as she went out doing her she kept the cat. She didn't bite the cat. She didn't let no other zombies bite her cat. She took care of her cat. She took care, and so we started calling the cat Kitty Kill 'Em All
No,
because
we call it cat Kitty Kill 'Em All because everybody who was still alive that came to them to the cat and tried to do something
tried to
to
rescue
either
it.
that lady or something to her.
Kitty
That
would get
cat whooped the mess out of that live person, just like scratched them all up and did all this other stuff. I was like, "Yep, Kitty Kill 'Em All."
it. Kitty ain't play. Kitty ain't playing that.
Kitty ain't playing. It's like Kitty is like it's like see, I got what I wanted. I got my pet now. Now my pet is going to destroy you. And you think you could come to me straight? Oh, guess what? Claws.
I got
Poor Hunter. Poor Hunter.
and we were like creating stories for Kitty Kill 'Em All. Like, Kitty Kill 'Em All leads a whole group of zombies. She's got at one point I think I told her it's like, you know what, we can create a little throne for Kitty.
Mhm.
We can put her on the throne. Some other zombies can carry her. The old lady, we'll make it a chair for the old lady to sit in, and Kitty will sit on her lap, and other zombies will just carry it around, and Kitty will, Kitty will direct them where to go, places. Especially if they can find seafood stores where the power's still on,
Uh,
so Kitty can get some fresh salmon or tuna. She'd be really happy. Uh, you know, if you can find Undead Norm, it is a great read. Christine Brenson, her humor is just it's a lovely book. I loved.
it's a very hilarious book, and I love the
Yes.
character.
Oh, it is one of those books. 'Cause I really I
And then
can't
her
praise it enough.
foray into manga, which was
Yes.
Bittersweet Sentinels,
Yes. You
which is
know.
kind of like her offshoot of like a Sailor Moon type character. It's good. It's good. It's hilarious.
Yeah, but they were really good at encouraging me when I first started, and it was I think you and Christine Brunson who kind of in DC who kind of went, the grayscale thing, the story's okay, but the grayscale doesn't work. You need to rethink physically how you're telling the story. Um, and because of that, it led to a whole new revamp, and the book that's out there today. And I don't hold on. Yes, hold on.
And that it makes me wonder whatever happened to that defunct group,
It is. Um,
the Sisterhood of Evil, if I
yeah,
remember
the
correctly.
Sisterhood of Comic Evil um, were full of women who actually were working on comics,
But it's only
and
three of
and
you
and
that
had
ever
no.
was really active.
There was up to at the end there were only three of us, but at one point we had like 20 something members. But it was women. They were, that was the whole point. We were all women. We had families. We had lives, and we were making comics. We didn't have a lot of women who were comics fans. I was probably the junior member. I was physically one of the older members, but I was also the junior members because I was coming from the fine art world into the comic book world. So they were really good at helping guide me on that journey. of what I needed to think about in regards to taking the screenplay and then adjusting it so it worked as a comic book, you know. And hold on, I will. I am specifically happy with this spread. Joe,
Yep.
you may recognize that.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
do.
My stepfather used to take me there when I was a little girl when my mom was pregnant. That we used to in the summer. I used to love to go to Buckingham Fountain and watch the water change colors and stuff. That was back in the day when it was safe to go through. What was
That
then
that plus
Grant
when
Park,
Chicago actually controlled when it was on and off.
and back then it was also Grant Park.
It's
Was
still
was
Grant Park.
well, it's a little weird because all of that used to be Grant Park, but now you have Millennium Park.
Right. They put all this extra stuff and they renamed it because it's like you have Millennium Park and Maggie Daly Park somewhere up in there
Yeah,
too. It's like it's just weird.
it's they kind of it all used to be Grant Park because I used to walk the shore starting at what is it, Foster. 'Cause I had friends who lived on the north side, so I would start walking the park at Foster and then hike on through to North Avenue Beach because after that there wasn't at that time any place where you could safely walk.
No,
So
why
I
I was
would
thinking
walk
Broadway.
there.
I don't know why I was thinking Broadway.
No, no, I would get. I had friends who were by Amundsen High School and stuff, Damon and Foster, and so it was easy to walk up to Foster and Sheridan and hop, and then just hop on.
Well, that's the reason why I was thinking Broadway because it's like you couldn't walk all the way through the beach and everything that's around Loyola University.
You could back then because it would you could if you stayed right on the shore where the big concrete blocks were,
Uh-huh.
you could make it through. So because you were east of LSD, so long as you were east of LSD, you were on the shore
Long as you
because
was
they
on
used to
the
have
east
the
east hand side of LSD, you was okay.
yeah, and because there was the little theater on the lake that's east of LSD. They
Uh-huh.
used to have a little theater on the lake over there. I don't think it's still there. But yeah, you could go from at least Foster to North Avenue Beach. Once you got to North Avenue Beach, trying to get around was harder because of how the
You have to go up and
LSD.
over and around and all this other
Yeah,
stuff to
so it
continue
was
on.
just even then it was like okay, come out at, come out at the beach. At Oak Street Beach. Yeah, come out at Oak Street Beach, and then I would take Michigan to about Lake, and then take State Street the rest of the way because at that time I was staying with my grandmother over at the Robert Taylor Homes
Yeah.
at 48th and State across from DuSable. So it was like the easiest way was just get on the State
So,
Street and then just
so
truck it
you
on.
pass by like my alma mater all day, each and every time, each and every time.
The Jones, did you go to?
No, IIT,
Oh
Information
yes,
Technology.
yeah, that's right. Truck on. I was thinking high school.
No, I'm talking college.
You know, I remember when Jones was. I mean, it's Jones is much different now because the mission that used Jones wasn't a full city block at that time. It was Jones, and then the rest of the block was the mission.
Yep, that be it. That be the one.
And then they tore down the mission and expanded Jones. You know, and Jones is very different than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, Jones had a very specific dress code.
It did. Even when I was in high school, they had it, and it was like one of few magnet schools that you have to specially test into.
You had the specialty test. And at Jones, you were going to one of two. You were either on a college track or you were going into some sort of business situation.
Right.
So, and you had to dress like you were showing up at an office every day. The only time you could not be in office clothing, and this was male and female, was when you had gym class. Other than that, you were in business attire. Girls had to wear dresses or skirts and low heel pumps. Guys had to wear, in the summers, they could wear the shorter sleeve shirts, but they had to wear the shirts and slacks. And I think,
Shirt, slacks, and tie.
yeah, they had a tie. And in the winter, I think the dress code was they had to wear a jacket. Girls could wear sweaters so long as they were sweaters that fit business, that were business attire appropriate, business appropriate sweaters. You couldn't just wear any sweater. You couldn't wear sweatshirts. If they were Jones was very specific, and you it was the only other school down there that was harder to get into was the Chicago School of Performing Arts, which I didn't know existed until one day I was taking the bus and it went past there. It's like, because Fame had come out, so everybody knew about the New York School of Performing Arts,
Uh-huh.
and it was like, oh my God, there's a Chicago School of Performing Arts, and it's not more, if it's still there. I don't know if they've torn it down, but it's about maybe just a couple of miles east of Whitney Young.
Yep.
You know, so and I just realized what time it is. Do you have any books?
Not that I'm going to cover today, and that's only mainly because of my current status.
Okay.
I
Do
don't
you
want to be snotting all over you.
any of your good stuff? Do you want to end early?
Well, yeah, we could end this early, but it's like lady looks like she's going to beat up some thug to get some Gojira. Call it, buddy.
These are those gloves when you're old and you have,
Compression gloves.
yeah, they're compression gloves. And when I'm writing or at the computer a lot, my hands get sore. So, this is, and I just spent the last couple of days putting 250 new brushes in Eclipse Studio Paint. I got the Brian Allen Flyland brushes. I think I have volume one, two, and three. So if you want brushes, I got for Eclipse Studio Paint, and they're SUTs. The files are SUTs. So
Okay.
they are totally compatible. He thought about it. They are totally compatible with CSP. So
Okay.
if you decide you want the brushes, he made some good brushes. I am so happy. I'm like, I can't wait to start work again.
I gotta finish lettering. I still got a couple of stories to letter, and then from there I have to clean off this table behind me and get to work on Amazonia 8.
Now that I've got CSP updated, um, I am debating if I ever get this grant money. This promised grant money. I ain't seen it yet. The last I heard was it's finally my package has arrived at the desk of the last big kahuna that has to sign off on it.
Yep.
Everybody underneath him has signed off and said okay. So, but from what I understand, since he's the director of the program, it's probably one of those, he has a day and it's however many, oh my goodness, we need to shut down. However many forms need to be signed that day.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know where folks in that position, they have like stacks like this, and I don't know where I am in that stack. So.
And it could be weirder. It could be an electronic signature, and you don't know which one of those files is yours.
Yeah, I really don't. All that I know is just once he signs off on it, then because they have all my electronic information in regards to bank accounts and stuff, they can just send it directly into the account. But
Speaking
it's
speaking of which, C2E2 2026 seems like it's a goal.
They okay, so they're actually. I was wondering with what's been going on, and I know there was a there we didn't have as many of the international crowd as we have in. I mean, there was a sizable crowd,
But
but
it wasn't like Pat in the past because you've been to what, two or three of them already.
yeah, and I noticed that we didn't get the international crowd, and and I've heard a lot of bigger cons saying that people aren't traveling right now to that way because nobody wants to come here and you can get in the country but then you can't get out, or you get out but not the way you want to go.
Right.
So it's but I have spoken with some wiser brains and who have told me look at how things are crumbling and the rate they're going compared to historically how other regimes have crumbled. um, you know, there are wise minds, politically minded, that are thinking this will end this will end sooner than we all expect. So I'm like, I can only hope, I shall pray to the Woody Booty.
Well, I'm just thinking about the other thing where we have our new Secretary of State telling us if you don't have to fly anywhere immediately, you could wait to get your real ID,
I'm
especially if you got a passport. I was like,
I don't have a
y'all just
passport.
making y'all doing too much now. It's like this is a federal guideline. You've been trying to get people to do this for how many years? And every time we try to get it done, nobody has anything to do. And now people need to fly places just within the country.
Yeah,
And now you're telling people this.
when I went to get John's ID, I had the money.
Uh-huh.
And I asked and I said, well, can I just get him a real ID?
Uh-huh.
Instead of spending the $20 to get a regular ID, I will upgrade mine to the real ID and get him a real ID. And he goes, no, 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 you don't need to do that right now. It's like, it's not a matter of if I need to do it right now. If I do it right now, I ain't got to think about it
Maybe
later.
we could have did it a long time ago. Just like for every time you renew your driver's license, they keep telling us about the real ID. It's like, well, I got the money to do it now. Could you go ahead and do it? It's like, no, there's no need. You could wait. The mandate is now. The mandate's here, and now they're
And
still telling
and
people it's
they're
like you
all
don't need to you don't need the real ID to fly now. As long as you got, if you got a passport, you don't need it. You don't need this. Like
in
some people
certain
don't have
states you
passports.
don't
Like
even
me, I
need
don't
it.
have a passport.
Well,
So
certain states you don't even. They are now making concessions because I guess other states, primarily red ones, um, have been so lackadaisical about pushing it that maybe 1 or 2% of their population that have IDs
uh
have them and no one else does. So certain states are getting more leeway that they don't have to have it right now. If they have to wait, people from certain states that they have to wait a little longer because the rush to get them now is so intense that they just don't have enough people to handle it.
that's what's happening with the passports. There's not enough people in the federal government to issue passports now because the states are taking it, telling people, no, you don't. There's no rush with these real IDs. It's like, no, there is a rush. You don't realize how many people actually fly,
Especially when you've got events going on all over. There are people I know of who like
and it's
to.
too costly to drive. A lot of people don't have vehicles where they have the luxury of driving across country. They don't have the time nor the money.
Well, and it's funny. I forgot who pointed it out. I don't think it's somebody we both know, but somebody was pointing out. Meanwhile, buses and train station are going. You don't need a real ID to come across, to
Mhm.
travel on us. And it's like, okay, well, you know, I luckily don't have as much. I don't have as much to, even now, I still don't have as much to truck if I had to go somewhere. I don't have as much to truck as you would. So, and I love the fact that, oh, wait, next year I can still use my grocery card. Everything else. The only thing is, it was so funny. Where were we? Courtney, where were we? Where we were realizing that if we'd had the grocery cart, it would have been a little challenging because there was no train. I mean, there was no elevator at that train stop. Oh, Hyde Park. We thought about taking the train from Hyde Park only to realize, wait a minute, there's
Wait,
no
the metro
elevator.
you know, from the metro station?
There are
Good
no.
luck with that is steps. All that is steps. And they're
Like,
like bloop 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 bloop.
it's like we would not have made it. We would not have made it. Oh no, poor Beanie.
Yeah.
Mama called Beanie. Um, you know.
Yeah. And it's like nobody needs to know what Beanie's doing.
Yes, we don't need to know what Beanie, and I will not repeat it because I have love and respect for Beanie. But I'm thinking so that you can give your nose some rest, and I can go grab a sandwich,
Yeah, because
and
you need to
then
eat.
tickle the spud
Yeah.
for a minute or so because
Right.
you know he hates it when I do that.
All right.
It's funny how somebody tell you I hate it when you do it, and then they're smiling.
I hate it when you do it.
and they're smiling at you. Anyway, thank you guys. We're ending a little early as opposed to way late. Stuff is happening, you know, and poor Joe. It's springtime, y'all. The stuff gets in your
All
nose.
his
And
sinuses,
it's
change
just
the
ugly.
weather.
It's just ugly. You wouldn't have wanted to admit it. You heard of who I was if you had seen me 3 days ago. It was not pretty. Anyway, thank you for coming. Whether you're watching us live, whether you watch us later, we appreciate you. We love you. And we love the fact that you bother with us because, you know, otherwise we're just a couple of old farts sitting here talking. But, come find me, Elaine Haygood, here at, I almost said Twitter. I need a nap.
That's a long time ago. That's a very long time ago in a galaxy far, far, far away. You up
Yes.
there with getting yourself in trouble in all these arguments and everything on a daily basis.
Okay. Here at YouTube, Elaine Haygood. At Facebook, Elaine Haygood. Or Elaine Haygood. I'm at lenscaponline.com. I am going through some changes of my emails, but the website will still be the website. It will still be up. Come check me out. Come talk to me. Yes, I have book copies and stuff. I haven't made final decisions. It looks like Amazon KDP will actually be able to produce a printed copy of the book, and I will let people know. Okay? Other than that, you take care of yourselves. Joe,
Yep.
Do something with that nose. Don't make me come have to take it from you.
No.
Okay.
If he did, it's like he'd probably take all my sciences away and probably be a happy person. and on that note, pretty much there will be a show on Saturday. We will be running another episode of From the Desk of a Small Press Publisher. Next week, Cliff should be back, so we're probably going to have another rousing discussion with all three of us back here. And to be quite honest here, I'm not certain what we're going to be talking about, but it will be something interesting nonetheless here. So enjoy the rest of your Thursday here. As I always say, live life, grow, and be well. And before I go, let's not forget about our show sponsor, which is Plasma Fire Graphics. And Plasma Fire Graphics, if you need graphical services for your brand new book, you need to hit up Jeffrey Hayes right here, right now, at this moment at plasmafiregraphics.com. If you don't believe me, take a look at this video.
You've worked hard and written a great book. Now it's time to give it a great cover. If you're an indie author or small press publisher, Plasma Fire Graphics is your source for affordable cover illustration and graphic design. Plasma Fire Graphics, when the look of your book matters to you.
There you have it. If you like what you see, make sure you hit up Jeffrey Hayes at Plasma Fire Graphics at plasmafiregraphics.com. Until next week, live life, grow, and be well. And unlike Brian K. Morris, I do not care if you wash your hands, but never, and I do mean never, apologize for being awesome. See you next week. Have a good one.